The Vermont Clean Water Act went into law about a decade ago. Its aim? Reduce pollution, primarily phosphorus, from entering Vermont waterways like Lake Champlain. We've been following the phosphorus and the researchers who study this mineral, and today, as we wrap up UVM Research Week on our program, we're learning the latest research to improve water quality in Vermont. Good afternoon, and thank you for stopping by Across the Fence. I'm Keith Silva, in for Amy Finley. Personally, I've been reporting on water quality of Lake Champlain for at least 30 years, and it feels like even longer than that sometimes. While I've told stories about nutrient management plans and talked about best management practices to reduce phosphorus, rarely have I had the opportunity to follow up and find out what's been learned from that research. To talk research, maybe even success, I'm joined by the director of UVM's Soil Testing Lab and the Center for Sustainable Agriculture at UVM, Joshua Faulkner, and Claire Benning, who is a doctoral student with UVM as well, and a member of UVM Extension. So welcome, Claire. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Awesome. So let's get into it, Joshua. What are we talking about here? And in a minute, we're going to see some of Claire's research up in St. Albans. But what are you sampling and what are you doing?
Yeah, so this research is really about phosphorus and tile drainage. And some of your viewers may be familiar. Tile drainage is a practice that farms use to lower the water table within their fields to help them be more productive. I think right now this is a really important question because farmers are using that practice more and more because growing seasons are getting wetter and wetter as we have a changing climate. It's an important practice for farm resilience, but we know there's some environmental questions and concerns around this practice. This particular research that Claire is doing is really interesting because we're comparing some fields that are drained versus some fields that are undrained. And then both of those fields with some of our favorite best management practices in those drain conditions and those undrained conditions.
Tile drainage, water table, this is all subsoil, right?
That's
under
correct.
The surface.
That's correct. You can't see it when you drive by, but it's there.
But it's there, and there's a lot of it. And
more of it with climate change.
Right,
yeah.
right. And tile drainage is also like an ancient, like it's been around forever.
Been around since 200 BC.
Yeah,
That's
200
correct.
BC. Well, let's take a look at Claire's work and research, which happens with the help of her dog, Jay, who was having a great time splashing around the mud, even if the humans were less impressed with the weather.
Jay. So much mud. I'm getting how much rain fell from yesterday. And then now I collect the water. It's splashed in the face. And this was the water that was collected from this station. It comes through the field and it runs through this flume and then it gets sucked up by this tubing up these pipes. So it is rainwater that went onto the field and then is running off the field, and then we measure what ran off. Super exciting stuff's about to happen, guys. It's so cold. Where's my clipboard? There it is. Yeah, my super shaky handwriting because my hands are so cold. This field kind of has natural undulations, and so it has natural watersheds in it, like distinct watersheds. So we manage each part differently, and then we can see how those management effects change the nutrient runoff. Science or whatnot.
Claire, I don't think I've gotten quite all the mud off my boots or out of my car since that day.
Yeah.
And the other thing I want to do is give a shout out to our Across the Fence intern, Rhiannon Hubbard, who helped us shoot that story. Claire, how did you become interested in this kind of work?
Well, I initially reached out to Heather Darby, who is another researcher on this project, looking for PhD positions. I am pretty interested in nutrient management and nutrient cycling, in general in the ag world. And she presented me with this opportunity. And the part that really interested me was that it was driven by farmers to design this project, and it was driven by other stakeholders in the area to really answer the questions of how best management practices affect water quality. And so that was really what drove me to apply for the position and ultimately come to UVM and work on it. Another aspect is that Joshua and Heather have really let me look at the data in ways that interest me, in ways that are kind of driven by a variety of questions. Sometimes PhD students come into a project and there is a set question that they are trying to answer. For me, they're kind of letting me drive the project and drive the analysis, and that is something that is really fun for me to do. I get to kind of analyze the data in a lot of different ways and look at the research in a lot of different ways.
Well, I like the idea of you being able to do that and also it being farmer driven, land grant mission, UVM, all important things. Joshua, as I said at the top, we've followed your research from field to field over several years. What's changed?
Oh, yeah, great question, Keith.
Summarize the last 13 years.
Yeah, right.
30 seconds.
I think in the years ago, we were really in this kind of stage of fact finding and understanding what the problem was and what the magnitude of the problem was. For example, I think the first story I did with you, Keith, we were looking at not tile drainage yet, but can phosphorus move downward through the soil profile?
And a lot of
people,
farms.
That's right, and a lot of people thought it couldn't, and we proved that it could, and now we're in this stage of, okay, what are the solutions to this problem? And for example, in Addison County, you take tile drainage in Addison County, we're looking at, can we use filter systems to capture phosphorus at the outlet of a tile drainage system? Or in Claire's research, it's like, what can the farm do on the surface of the soil around nutrient management and soil management to help limit that phosphorus, before it even gets a chance to move down through the soil surface?
So what are you learning from this project, monitoring this runoff below and above the soil? What are you learning, Claire?
So we are really looking at how best management practices and tile drainage in combination affect water quality in Lake Champlain Basin. Like Joshua mentioned, and I mentioned in the video, it's really unique that we have these 4 treatments back to back to back that we can really compare. So it's good for us to really have that comparison across all 4 and look at that. That's one thing. And then me in particular, I'm learning a lot about how to do water quality research.
Okay.
I come from a little bit more of a soil science background. That's what I got my master's degree in. And so I'm learning a lot about the weather and a lot about the variability. So a lot of nutrient management and nutrient runoff is driven by environmental variability and soil conditions and precipitation and the management practices that we do. And ultimately, all of that is just to reduce non-point source pollution, which is a really big problem, especially in agriculture.
Right.
So that's ultimately what we're trying to do here and learning about. But for me, I'm learning just a lot about doing field research in these really tough conditions and a lot about analyzing a kind of complicated experiment. It's really set up uniquely, and it's a little challenging to analyze statistically.
And shout out to the farm. Discovery Acres is where the video was shot, where we were at doing that work. Sorry to sound like one of your bosses or funders, but
I'm used to it.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, all good. So what's the impact? What's happening?
Yeah, good question. So, we're collecting a lot of really good data. I don't think we are seeing some differences. I don't think we're quite ready to talk about results and conclusions yet. We're excited.
13 years in, not ready to talk
Well,
about
at this particular Discovery Acres site.
Okay. Oh, at this site.
At
Okay.
this
Okay.
particular
Fair
site,
enough.
yeah. But we're really excited to have Claire kind of on this project as a dedicated PhD student. I think give it a couple years as she's finishing up her dissertation. Maybe we come back in and we'll talk. Be ready to talk about.
You can
some
finally be like,
conclusions.
here's the deal. Here's the deal,
That's
Silva. So what kind of runoff carries more phosphorus? The kind that goes through the soil or the kind that runs over the soil?
So there are two things that we measure when we talk about runoff. There is concentration of the nutrient in the water, and then there is the volume of water. So the concentration of phosphorus in the water that is below ground, we are typically seeing it be lower. So the phosphorus concentration below ground is lower than the phosphorus concentration above ground. However, if the volume of water below ground is greater than the volume of water above ground, then you might be losing the same amount, even though the concentration is lower. So that's when I was talking about variability earlier.
And complicated.
And complicated, yeah. It really all depends. And something that drives that volume difference might be environmental conditions, such as did we just have a drought, or is the soil already super wet, stuff like that. So typically the concentration is lower below ground, but if that volume is higher, then you might kind of have equal amounts below and above ground. It's a math balance.
So Joshua, before we were talking about funders and bosses, but I hear we do these water quality stories. I hear the same thing. There's phosphorus in Lake Champlain. Lake Champlain is a basin. It's a bowl at the bottom of a slope. Things run downhill. So, what's the point of all this? If we're just sort of spitting into the wind here.
It's a fair question. I guess a couple of things. It's really important work. It's too important for us to just throw our hands up and walk away from it. It's a big ship to turn, right? We've been farming in this basin for a long time. Right. It's going to take time to make a change. But I think we can do it. It's not necessarily going to be the benefit to our generation, but probably generations that come after us and generations after them. And I also think it's really important for us to continue to work on improving the sustainability of agriculture. It's just so important to our working landscape, and we want to continue to help farms, do what's right. And then lastly, phosphorus is not it's a finite resource. We need to keep it on the landscape and use it to grow food instead of running off into our waterways.
Yep. Excellent. Perfect way to end the show. Thank you both very much. This was a lot of fun to talk to you and to revisit some of the research that's going on and to meet Jay, of course. My thanks to the team behind the scenes here at WCX who work in all conditions. I'm Keith Silva. This is Across the Fence. Thanks for being part of our family.